My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Last of Us Part 2. And I love this game. I love this game so much. It's absolutely brilliant. It's a masterpiece. It's my favorite thing ever. It's not only the best video game ever made, it's also better than any TV show. It's better than any movie or book. It's just the best. I'll never get over just how amazing this game is. I don't even know where to begin. It's absolutely perfect. But let's begin with the character of Ellie. Ellie is still my favorite character, and my love for her is only amplified after this game. The amount of depth and nuance behind her character is just top notch. They push her to her absolute limit. You watch her go into some dark places. I said in my review for the first game that my favorite aspect of Ellie in the first game is how much levity she brings to it. The world's a dark and depressing place, and she just brings some lightness to it. And that's all gone here. You're watching this character who was once filled with joy and life, and you're just watching all of that being stripped away from her. You're watching this character go on this dark path, and it just breaks your heart. Just some of the stuff she goes through in this game, it just hits you so hard on an emotional level, and the way that the story constantly pushes her character forward is just some of the greatest writing. I love it. And Ashley Johnson gave one of the greatest performances in anything ever. She's phenomenal here. I know Laura Bailey won lots of the awards for this game, and understandably so, but Ashley Johnson deserved them in my heart. There's one scene, and I've played this game so many times by this point, but there's one scene where she's crying out, and just the way that her voice breaks while she's crying out, it feels so real. It is some of the greatest acting I've ever witnessed, and I'm just blown away by her performance. Troy Baker is back as Joel, and he does an amazing job here. He brings so much to his character, so much warmth. You can see that this is a changed man. The Joel who's in this game isn't the same Joel that was in the beginning of the first game. He's a man who's trying to be better, who's trying to be there for Ellie, and I love seeing that in this game. Even though he's not in the game a whole lot, his presence is constantly felt. And I just think Troy Baker does a fantastic job voicing him. I also love the fact that he never just straight up says how he feels. He always says it in a way that feels true and authentic to his character. So the writing is just top notch, some of the greatest. But there's also lots of new characters. This is a spoiler-free review. There will be a spoiler-filled review coming out next week. So I will say that Laura Bailey voices a character named Abby, and what they do with Abby is unlike anything else. I think it is some of the greatest and most riskiest writing I've ever witnessed. It's bold where they take her character, and as a character who I hated at the start, just what they do with her is just some incredible writing, and Laura Bailey brings a character to life in such a phenomenal way. There's also a new character named Dina who I absolutely love. I love it when her and Ellie are working together in the beginning, and the way that they talk. You think that Ellie and Joel, their crest is unlike any other crest that anyone else has gone through in this world. But as soon as Dina talks, you realize that she's gone through dark stuff, and she's done a lot of bad things too. And just the way that her character subverts expectations is so smartly done. And I just love the character. She is the joy in this game. She is the warmth that this game really needed. And I just think the directions that her character goes in are just so well written. I feel true to her character. Shannon Woodward, I believe is her name, did a really great job voicing her. I love Dina. I also love the relationship between Ellie and Dina. I thought it was a really sweet relationship. They both complemented each other, and just them together brings so much to this game. Their story isn't without some tragedy in it, but it's just so well written, and I really did care for these two as a couple. There's also another new character named Jesse who I absolutely loved, which caught me by surprise because he gets introduced and I'm just like, oh, is he gonna be like the jealous ex-boyfriend character? And he immediately subverts your expectation, and he's just this mature dude who really cares for his friends. He's loyal, he'll do what's right. He's just a stand-up guy in every single possible way, and I loved him as a character. There's also Tommy. Tommy's back in this game. They do a bit more with him in this game, even though he's not in it a ton, but I loved his character here. I love the directions they take him. Jeffrey Pierce does an amazing job voicing him, and yeah, Tommy's once again another great character. There's also a few other characters, Lev and Laura, who I thought were really great, well-developed characters that had a lot of depth behind them, and they have some tragic elements to their story as well. That's really well done. I also thought Owen was a fantastic character. I thought that he brought lots of warmth and life into this game. For a game that's so dark and depressing, he adds a lot of joy into it in certain moments, which was a pleasant surprise. I thought he was a really well-written character. I thought Mel, Manny, were both really well written too. Just, this game's got a crazy amount of characters. And everybody's great. Everybody serves their purpose well. Everybody pushes the story forward in some sort of way. Everybody has some sort of impact on what's going on. And everyone is handled with the same amount of love and care. The voice acting is phenomenal across the board. And once again, just the writing behind Ellie here is just some of the greatest ever. And I just loved how this game handled each and every one of its characters. To balance this many characters could not have been an easy task, but this game does it flawlessly. And everybody feels so lived in. There's a 5-year gap between the first game and the second game. And it feels like these people lived actual lives between the two games. It feels like they each have a past and a future. And like, there's a character named Kat, and you don't see Kat once. At all. But I know who Kat is. Kat is somebody who Ellie was kind of crushing on. And she's hardly even mentioned at all, and I love the fact that I know that. There's another character named Eugene. We don't see Eugene at all except for a few pictures. And I still know who he is. I still know what he meant to certain people. The handling of the characters is unlike anything else. It is top notch. And the story that's on display here is just the greatest ever. It is a difficult story to talk about without spoiling it. It is very difficult, but it is a challenging story. It challenges the person playing it. It makes them feel stuff that they don't want to feel. It makes them like characters that they don't want to like. It makes them hate characters that they don't want to hate. This game's constantly challenging you and challenging your viewpoint on everything that you're experiencing. And it is so bold and risky that way. This game does not play it safe. It takes every possible risk they could have. And boy, does it pay off. This isn't just a game I love. It actually makes me have respect for everyone behind it because they knew what they were getting into with this game and they put it off flawlessly. So I have such huge respect for Neil Druckmann. This game is also just consistently emotional. It is maybe the darkest and most depressing game you'll ever play. There's very few moments of levity to it, and even those levity moments have a dark undertone to them. This game just broke me in so many scenes. And when I say broke, I mean like, this game really affected me. It really got under my skin. It really made me feel stuff that I don't want to feel. And it just drains the life out of you in the best possible way. It is so emotional. Every scene has some level of depth to it. Not a single second feels wasted. And this game is long. It's longer than you'd expect it to be. And every single scene just has so much depth and nuance and meaning to it. And every scene has some level of depth to it. This game is much longer than you're expecting it to be. But yet every scene feels essential. It feels purposeful. It feels like it has a specific purpose. The level of depth and nuance on display is just phenomenal. And just the way that the story pushes the characters to their absolute limits. It's so heartbreaking to watch, But right when you think that things couldn't possibly get any worse, they consistently get worse. And oh man, this story is just everything. It takes wild directions. It's structured absolutely perfectly. The way that... Oh my goodness. Okay, let's just get into it. The structure of this game is phenomenal. It's some of the greatest story structure I've ever witnessed. Because there's a bunch of flashbacks in this game, and the way that they're used is so perfect. And it comes at exactly the right moment. See, this is a game that's so confident in how the player is feeling at every single moment. And it's structured around those emotions. At one point, when you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this way right now. No, you're meant to. That is a deliberate choice. Just every single scene in the order it takes place in feels like it has a purpose. And I'll never get over just how well this game uses its structure. The use of flashbacks is just, it's phenomenal. In a world where people have lost so much, the flashbacks just remind you of what has been lost. And it just hits you so much harder. And it's and once again, this game begins and you feel like you have a sense of what the story is. You feel like it's about two characters who are kind of growing apart and them trying to make things work now. And just kind of the story that comes from that. And just the way that the game is so confident that you think that's what this game is. You think that people don't know stuff. You think people do know stuff. And just the way that the game uses that to constantly surprise you. And completely recontextualize the entire story with each and every flashback. Oh my god, it is just... I can't believe someone actually came up with this. It is... Wow, it is just... incredible. And every single beat of it feels natural. It feels authentic. It doesn't feel like, oh, the game's trying to do all these crazy twists. No. It feels like what would happen in this case. It really does. And I just loved how this game is dependent on emotion. It's dependent on rage and sadness to get you through it. When the story kicks off, everyone feels a specific way. At certain moments throughout the game, everyone feels the same way. That is confidence in your storytelling and in your game making. I almost said filmmaking, but I guess this would be game making. And I just love how this game uses its emotions in such a purposeful way. So perfect. But there's just so much to this game. This game is about guilt and forgiveness and redemption. And empathy, and hatred. But most of all, this game is about love. It's about love and loss, and how that affects people in the most awful ways. And these ideas are fully explored, and they feel true to the characters and to the story, and just the world that they play. It's just absolutely... Every single idea in this game really does hit you. And I think it also lets you sink into the fact that life is permanent. That everything that you've ever done or said is a permanent part of life. Every mistake you've made is permanent. You will never live a life without that mistake ever again. See, this game came out back in June of 2020, and not to get too personal, but that was definitely a dark spot for me. And this game just helped me out there. It really did change the way I view the world. And for that, I'm very thankful for it. It came at the right time. And like I said, just the fact that it really makes you feel how everything in life is permanent. It's just every idea that it's trying to explore is given so much depth and nuance, and it includes every single character. It's just masterful writing. And like I said, you're forced to sympathize with people you don't want to sympathize with. You're forced to feel things that you don't want to feel. And the game constantly puts things into perspective. You know, there's that moment in the first game where Sam and Henry abandoned Ellie and Joel. And then Joel sees him again, and he starts, he's going to grab him, he's going to shoot him. And Henry's just like, no, if it was you in that position, you would have done the same thing. And that a small idea of putting things into perspective and how being fueled by emotion in a moment can make things worse. That idea in that moment is amplified to a huge degree in this game. There is no wrong and right, there is no good and bad. There's people who do good things, there's people who do bad things. There's a messiness to life. Does one act define your entire character? Could you ever be redeemed from that one act? Is there hope for anyone? Is there a point in which there's no hope left for a person? There's just so much to think about here. And I just think this game, it handles it all perfectly. And it is thrilling and intense. Oh my god, where do I even begin with that? Once this game gets going, it is a non-stop thrill ride. Like, there are some moments that just feel so cinematic. Like, you're in a neighborhood and you're going after some smoke, and the music playing by Mac Crua in that moment, I think that's how you say his last name, is just pumping up the tension. And you gotta get somewhere, and there's people yelling stuff like, he went that way, and you gotta get over that way. It just feels really climatic. There's a moment where you're in a vehicle, you're getting chased by a bunch of people, and then clickers. And then the camera's behind the driver and the passenger in the vehicle. And it feels like you're there with them. There's so many fantastic moments that just feel so climatic. And the way that this game is just consistently thrilling and intense throughout is so... Oh my goodness. Like, there was some terrifying moments in this game. There was one moment in a hospital, which is just bone chill. I also love how there's moments where you think that you know how this moment's going to go down. Like, oh, I'm just going to push this cart and... Oh, no, it's stuck in the floor. Collapses from beneath you. Oh, I'm just going to do some stuff that I do a billion times, and nope, for some reason something happens and you're now getting attacked. That way this game just keeps you on edge. You never know what's coming your way, and the way that just freshens up the formula, it's just so nice. It really is. And the creature design in this game is once again fantastic. I have to mention the Shamblers. The Shamblers aren't the hardest enemies to fight, but my god, when you fight a Shambler and it's lying dead on the ground and you can just see the dead paws that it has, I look at it for a really long time actually. I just found it so interesting on a visual level. That hospital scene that I mentioned earlier has some incredible creature design. There's a new enemy called the Stalker, which I just loved. I love the Stalkers in this game. It makes for some really intense sections. Like there's one scene when you're in an office building and there's these clickers just who are really good at hiding and sneaking up on you throughout. And every time I get to this section, I'm just on edge. And it's so much fun, but it's so scary at the same time. And I just think there was a lot of work put into these creatures, and I loved it. And the group of enemies, oh my goodness. Even the groups of enemies are given so much depth, which I absolutely loved. The wolves are really well developed bunches of characters. You understand how the group formed, how it's transformed over the years, and what the goals are now. There's the Seraphites, also called the Scars. You understand how that group formed and how they transformed over the years, and why those two groups are at war with each other. And if you just look at those two groups, there was so much depth and nuance there, which I can't believe that groups like that were given as much depth as they were. But there's also this group called the Rattlers, and I don't want to give it away, but the story behind these guys is so fascinating that I would love to see more of them in a future game. Just the idea behind them is just phenomenal, and just the fact that they gave all these enemies so much thought and just gave them so many details. Like, you can tell that they've put so much work into this game in every single area. Nothing was done in a lazy manner. Everything was given the respect it deserves. The graphics are absolutely outstanding, and they're just some of the best I've ever seen. The emotions on the characters' faces are showcased so perfectly. They really do feel like real people. the environments and the way they're brought to life, whether it's snow, whether it's hot and sandy, whether it's the forest, just every single environment looks real. There's a moment where there's these rapids and they're beating up against these rocks and you gotta jump from one to the next. And just the way the water looks as you're jumping over it and as it's hitting the rocks, it looks real. It really freaking does. The landscapes, the attention to detail, oh my goodness. Like there's a few sections where you're just sitting there looking at a view into the mountains and you just can't help but just stop, put down the control, and just look at it for a while. Or there's a moment where you're sitting on a tractor while the sun sets, and it just looks so beautiful. But on the other side of that, there's also moments where someone walks on a mine and they blow up and there's blood everywhere, and when you look down, like it looks like a guy actually stepped on a mine and blew up. I just thought that was really impressive too. There's also this workbench animation, which is just so freaking satisfying. You're just upgrading your weapons, and instead of just doing standard animations, it looks so aesthetically pleasing. Aesthetically pleasing, I mean. Like, I just can't describe it. It looks really, like, it is, the graphics in this game are top notch. Like, man, I just can't get over. And I'm honestly obsessed with the atmosphere in this game. The atmosphere in this game is just like any other. Just the dark, rainy nights, the fog, the way just the environment comes to life, I find it to be oddly enough intoxicating. There's a YouTube channel, I can't think of the name, but he just does videos where the Last of Us music plays over certain moments in the game where the guy just stands still. And I have it on the background at work all day, every day. And sometimes I just go to that tab and I just look at it and I just get soaked in and I love it. You know, there's a moment where you're about to enter a convention center and you're heading to a hospital. And you're just standing at the hospital, like with the hospital in view. And I just love staring at that. There's also another moment where you're standing on top of a building and you're heading towards a Ferris wheel. You can see the water and oh my goodness, I just love staring at it. It just draws me in. I can't get enough of this atmosphere in the game, and the use of music in the background is absolutely masterful. That absolutely adds to some moments. I actually have a picture in my room of Ellie just standing there with the Ferris wheel in the background, and I just love it. I just find it to be so atmospheric and so beautiful. I really do love it. And speaking of the Ferris wheel in the hospital, I love how you can always see where you're heading to. Whether you're heading towards some smoke in the sky, or you're heading towards a Ferris wheel, and you're heading towards a hospital, you're heading towards this one direction, and you can see where you're going based on the direction the sunlight is shining. I just love that you can always see how far away you are from where you're heading. I just think it's really used masterfully throughout, and I also love that transition from gameplay to cutscene and vice versa. It is seamless. It is absolutely flawless. You're playing a cutscene, so you're playing the game, and then suddenly you're just like, oh, I guess it's a cutscene. Usually you play a game, and the animation looks one way, and then the cutscene it looks much better, and that's not the case here. It looks just as good in the cutscene as the gameplay, and the way it seamlessly transitions from the two, I just find to be very pleasing. The musical score by Gustavo Santaolalla is once again top notch. This is my favorite score of all time. Like I said, I listen to the music all day, every day at work. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. It has so much, it adds so much to the atmosphere and to the tone of the game. There's a piece of music, I think it's called Blissful Spirits. And it gives the game a haunting feel to it. There's also Beyond Desolation, which is another great track. There's also The Last of Us Part 2. The way the game begins with Unbroken. Just every piece of music is fantastic. But I have to mention my absolute favorite, and that's Allowed to Be Happy. I love this track. I listen to it all the time. I listen to it probably at least 50 times a day. That is not an exaggeration. I love it. It just has this feeling that you listen to it and you're just like, oh, it just feels like the good times are in the past. And you miss them, but you keep moving forward. This piece of music just feels like that feeling. It just encapsulates it so perfectly. And yeah, I really love the music here, and the use of it throughout is just masterful. It really adds a ton to every single scene that it's present in. It adds a lot to the atmosphere. I love the music so much. And the songs are also fantastic. There's a song, Future Days by Pearl Jam, and the use of that song throughout is absolutely masterful. Crooked still has a few songs on this soundtrack, and they're used perfectly throughout. I love the haunting feel of Ecstasy. The song's called Ecstasy. I don't actually do Ecstasy. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you here on a video. But anyways, there's also a version of Take On Me, which I just find to be beautiful. I listened to that one quite a bit. And even though they're not in the game a lot, there's also Through the Valley by Sean James. But if you listen to the version by Ashley Johnson, it's much better. There's also True Face, which is also a great song. And in the credits, there's a version of Wayfaring Stranger, the song by Johnny Cash. And just the way that song plays, they do something really special with it, which I really loved. Another small detail that I absolutely love in this game is that there's a few times where you have to try to figure out the code to a safe to unlock it. But what's actually incredible is that the sound design in this game is so good that you can just keep going, and you can tell when it's the right one, just like an actual save. Just a small detail that I absolutely love, and the sound design in this game is absolutely incredible. It is flawless. I also have to mention, and I can't believe it took me this long to get to it, the gameplay in this game is insane. I love it. It's one of the funnest... For a game that's as dark and depressing as it is, this gameplay is just some of the funnest ever. Like, I just have so much fun playing it. Oh my goodness. Just the way you approach a group of enemies, you can either stealth them or fight them head on or alternate between the two. The way that they use the environment so perfectly in every level design that you can switch between the two. Like, it feels like the gameplay is just so much fun to actually fight a group of baddies. How every group feels different. The several fights have these whistles, and they communicate using the whistles, and you're just trying to figure out what they each mean. And it just makes it all the more intense while you're sneaking up on them. Oh my goodness, the weapons are all great. I'll say my absolute favorite weapon is the bow and arrow. I love it. I think it is the most satisfying weapon to use when you kill a guy with a bow and arrow. It's just great. I love using it. The other weapons are fantastic. The supplies, once again, you gotta use the supplies appropriately. Do I need this? Do I need this? Where should I spend these supplies? You have to put a lot of thought into it, and I love that element. But the level design in the gameplay sections is just pure perfection. There's a section where you're sneaking up on a bunch of people and you can be lying on the ground, crawling through in the tall grass. Then you come across a parking garage that has holes in the roof and you gotta sneak around a bunch of guys, which is so much fun. You're at an entrance to a hospital where you can go up, you can go up a ladder where a guy's sniping. Or, well, he's not really sniping, he's just kind of up there. But you can kill him that way. There's a section where you go through a bunch of different houses. There's a section where you're up high in the sky and you're just on pretty much like the top of a building that the construction wasn't finished on. There's a section where you're in a shopping mall and you can jump off from the second story into the first one, into the water, and then swim underneath into different sections. The level design, like I could go on and on about each and every single level design, but they're all phenomenal. And I love how the enemies are constantly freshening things up. Like, once dogs get introduced, you're just like, oh man, this is getting harder. There's some big dudes you have to face. The way that, I just find everything about the gameplay to be absolutely flawless. It is such a fun game. I love sneaking up on a bunch of baddies, killing a bunch, and then going back into stealth. I just have a lot of fun playing this game. Like, I really do. I'll be crying because the story's so emotional, and then once I'm back to the gameplay, I'm like, okay, this is so much fun. I have the biggest smile on my face. Oh my goodness, it's just insanely good. And another thing I love about the bad guys you fight throughout is that each bad guy is actually given a name. So you'll kill a guy, And then you hear someone be like, Gregory, no! And you're just like, I love that. It's a small touch, but it really adds a lot. And I love the brutality of this game. For a game that's as dark and depressing as this one, the brutality of it is absolutely essential and you feel it. Not just in the story, but in the gameplay. Like, you'll shoot a guy in his neck and you'll listen to him as he chokes to death on his own blood. It's insane. I love it. It is brutal. Look, like, this entire game is just phenomenal. But truth be told, that by the end of it, by the time you'll finish this game, you just feel gross. You just feel sad, depressed, empty. And you're just left there thinking about everything that you just experienced. All the emotions you felt. The directions that the story took these characters. And you're just left with a sinking feeling in your stomach. And it's just unlike anything else. This game isn't just depressing for the sake of it. There's a greater purpose to it. And just at the end of this game, when you finish it all, and you're just left with that feeling, and you look back on everything, this game just has a huge impact. I played this game for the first time back in June of 2020. I was then put on night shift for a couple of months. And every time I was on night shift, I just thought about this game. And it's now been, over a year. By the time this video comes out, it'll be over 2 years. And I still think about this game all the time. I think about it multiple times every single day. I still talk about it like I did the first time I played it. I still get giddy when I talk about it. Because just everything that's in this game I can't express my love for it enough. It's just one of those games that has stayed with me ever since I finished playing it. I've never just gotten over everything that I experienced while playing this game. It's just a masterpiece. It really is. I don't use that term lightly, but if this isn't a masterpiece, then I don't know what could be considered. I do think this is the greatest story ever told. I just think the way it challenges your viewpoints on these characters and what has happened, and how it makes you feel stuff that you don't want to feel, how it puts things into perspective, about how every character feels so well defined and essential to the plot. The journey that Ellie goes on from this bright and happy teenager, and as you watch that brightness just fade away to nothing in this game, it just makes you feel so much. And the ideas that it explores are just so universal, and they're handled with the most utmost of care. Everything, the gameplay is phenomenal, the graphics are outstanding, it's a beautiful game with the most intoxicating atmosphere, the music is just pure perfection, and it is the most emotional story. I've played this game countless times and it never fails to move me, it never fails to break my heart, time and time again. But I also think that there's so much that this game has to say about empathy that I think it's a game that people should play. I really do. I think this game is something unlike anything else. I don't know if there'll be a story ever told again that's as good as this one, and I truly mean that. This game just hits me so hard, and I think that there's so much meaning behind it. And I just think that it really is perfect. I love this game. I love this game as just... I've said it countless times. I just think this is the greatest story ever told. I think it's the greatest game ever. I think it's the best visual storytelling that has ever existed. And my God, I just can't believe something this good exists. Every single time I played, I'm just left with that. A game that uses structure so brilliantly, that's so confident in the emotions that the player is feeling, that's so confident in what you're expecting from this game. It's just absolutely brilliant. Neil Druckmann is an absolute genius. I know people hated the direction that this story take, but I'm so thankful that this game took them. This game is unlike anything else. It is just, yes, I've said it countless times, but it must, it bears repeating. Play this game. It changed my life. And that is the highest compliment I can give anything. This game changed my life. I'm so thankful it exists the way it does. I love it. I love it so much. I've played it countless times and I'll play countless more times. It's the best thing. The absolute best thing that has ever been made. So of course, I'm going to give The Last of Us Part 2 a 10 out of 10. Anyways, have you played Last of Us Part 2? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, including my spoiler-filled review that's coming out next week. And Gavin out.